What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of The Iron Claw, Sean Durkin's sports biopic film from A24 starring Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickinson, and Holt McCallany. This is a Oscar contender. This is a Best Picture nominee contender. There's been a lot of hype for The Iron Claw as it comes out at the end of next week. And I have to say, The Iron Claw is excellent. This is a very compelling, well-done film. This is also a heavy film. To use the wrestling parlance that you'll hear throughout the movie, a film about wrestlers, of course, this is a never-ending series of hits below the belt. This movie is devastating. It is heartbreaking. It is sad. It is heavy. Watching the fall of the Von Erich family as misfortune and tragedy continues to befell this family is very tough to watch, but ultimately I think the movie is done very well, and I liked it a lot. This is about the famous Von Erich family, a family of wrestlers. The movie takes place primarily in the 80s and 90s, it kind of picks up in the 70s, and we're centered with Holt McCallany's character, Fritz Von Erich. Von Erich is, of course, the family wrestling ring names. They're actually the Atkinsons in real life. But Fritz Von Erich, we're introduced to him as a wrestler who was successful but never quite got his big break, never quite became the champion he wanted to. And as a result, who we are introduced to is one of the all-time bad movie dads. My God, will you loathe Holt McCallany as Fritz? And it's a fantastic performance from Holt. Of course, he's done a lot of good work lately. I think still my favorite stuff from him was in Mindhunter, on Netflix a while back now at this point. But man, Fritz Von Erich as a character being this guy who's mad at the world and thus kind of manipulates his kids as he raises them into using that as their motivation in life. It's very deceptive what kind of guy he is. Someone who pits his children against each other, openly talks about who his favorite son is in front of all of his sons. Very much the living vicariously through your kids type sports dad as well. It's tough, and you watch it, and we spend the majority of the movie with the children, of course, as adults, in their 20s and so on. Zac Efron as Kevin, Jeremy Allen White as Carrie, Harris Dickinson as David, and newcomer actor who I hadn't seen before, Stanley Simons as Mike. And Mike is the kind of artsy soul, not really built physically nor super interested in being a wrestler. You have kind of the golden boy son, Kevin, from Zac Efron. And then Jeremy Allen White's Carrie is actually initially outside of the wrestling family fold because he's a prospective Olympian discus thrower. And he comes back to the family and starts wrestling when the United States doesn't go to the Moscow Summer Olympics, and I believe that was 84, whenever that was, early on in the movie. And yeah, I think it's so interesting spending so much time with his family because you have these brothers who clearly worship and idolize their father and seek his admiration, seek his approval, his love. But also you have this family that really loves each other. These brothers really love each other. They call each other brother, right? You can see how proud they are of each other's success and well-being. And it's challenging to watch them clearly just be under the spell of this manipulative dad they have. Nonetheless, the Von Erichs initially find success in the CCW promotion. Of course, is the time, pre-WWF, pre-WWE, when wrestling was a lot of local promotions, very regionalized, but also very segmented, all kinds of promotions and tours kind of all out there. And this is kind of a fledgling operation trying to make it in the wrestling business. And the Von Erich children are basically Fritz's path to getting that family belt that they so desperately seek. And yeah, I think the performances in the movie are almost universally tremendous. You have I think Maura Tierney, underrated as the mother of the Von Erich clan. she doesn't have any like big lines per se, but I think the presence she has, the grief she carries on her face, her inability to watch her kids wrestle on TV, also the clearly absent parent that she ended up being, telling Kevin to talk to her brothers about some adversity that comes up, not really wanting to deal with it. Like, it's a really good performance. But this is, I think, the most hyped up thing about this is that it's the best performance of Zac Efron's career. I think pretty obviously. He's really great at wearing the heartbreak that never endingly seems to befall on him. And you could tell as his fear of the Von Erich family curse as he begins to truly believe in it as tragedy continues to befell all those around him. But despite the fact that Zac Efron has got himself so jacked, almost cartoonishly muscular for this role as Kevin Von Erich, there's like just a lot of like heart and soul to this performance and to this character, who is the through line of the movie. He is very much the main character, even though throughout the story of the Von Erichs at wrestling, who the main protagonist is to the public definitely changes. You have David Von Erich, Harris Dickinson's character, kind of skips ahead of Kevin, because David is a lot more charismatic on the mic, is really good at selling the fights, and that's obviously a huge aspect of wrestling, is being able to communicate with the audience and have them invest in you in that way. And then, of course, the tragedy continues, and eventually we really spend a lot of time with Carrie, Jeremy Allen White's character, and we're introduced very early on to what kind of character, a kind of person Carrie is, someone who kind of lives life fast and does a lot, does the most, and you can think of many ways that can apply, both to his presence in the ring, but also his presence outside of the ring with perhaps the bottle or other things like that. And yeah, I think Jeremy Allen White, a lot of hype for him. This is honestly probably the biggest role, definitely the biggest role, most significant role from eyeball standpoint he's had since, of course, the gigantic breakthrough he's had on FX's The Bear, Emmy award-winning series and whatnot. And I think Allen White really imbues the physicality, but also the kind of like tortured, like demonized soul that you had in Carrie. And I think him and Efron have really good chemistry. Harris Dickinson, honestly, it's a smaller role. You're kind of sad to see him leave the movie when he does, because I just really enjoyed his dynamic with Kevin as well. And Harris Dickinson, I mean, the last year we've had him with Triangle of Sadness, A Murder at the End of the World, the FX miniseries, and now the Iron Claw. I mean, I believe he's only 27 years old. He is rapidly rising, after I think a kind of steady come up to this point. Hats off to him. And yeah, I mean, kind of spoilers from here. And of course, this is all pretty well documented. It's based on a real story after all. I think what's so damning about reading up on the Von Erich tragedy in real life is that there actually was another brother in this story who isn't even portrayed in the movie. Of course, the oldest of the Von Erich, the Atkinson boys, dies of a freak accident, like 5 years old, and that's acknowledged in the movie. But there's another Von Erich who's not portrayed in the Iron Claw, and that is, I believe, Chris Von Erich, who also happened to kill himself in his early 20s. And like the fact that the Iron Claw basically had to streamline its narrative from a plot perspective, but also almost like a believability and an audience perspective. And the fact that this is actually a story that was even heavier and darker and sadder in real life than it is in this already heavy and dark movie. Kind of mind-blowing. Nonetheless, I mean, the spiral that you see Carrie go down, I think, is very difficult because it's longer in the movie. What happens to David, you kind of get set up for it, and then it happens pretty quickly. And next thing you know, David's gone. Of course, dying from apparently an intestine issue, speculated to be a heart attack or who knows what it was over in Japan, and he's kind of gone. But Carrie's downward spiral after injuring himself in a motorcycle accident, having to have one of his feet amputated, and then realizing his wrestling career is quickly ending, he's going to lose his contract. Like, watching that spiral, I think, is really challenging and really tough. But also, the biggest tragedy of all is probably what happens to Mike, who never really wanted to be a wrestler in the first place. But once David's gone, sure enough, Fritz seems to have gotten his youngest son in the mix, even though he never was really built or motivated for that. And what happens to him, I think, is incredibly tragic as well. Having a freak complication from a shoulder surgery leading to a coma, leading to some cognitive decline post coma, and then leading to a suicide as well. It's really sad. And again, I think throughout the whole movie, you have Efron as kind of the shining light in the movie as someone who becomes disillusioned. But I think all these like key moments of tragedy, and then eventually build up to kind of satisfying development for the audience when Kevin finally addresses his father and calls him out for all his failures and what he's failed his family for. That's all earned. Even if you can kind of predict like core beats of the movie, I suppose you could say, everything feels so earned and feels so set up, and you're just kind of with it for the ride, even though it's just so heavy and challenging to sit with. And yeah, I think it's a really good movie, in terms of sad sports stories. I think it's really executed on well. And you don't even have to be a fan of wrestling or have any knowledge of the Von Erich story to really appreciate it. I'm certainly not a wrestling fan, but I think the movie does a good job of focusing in on the motivations of these characters and grounding that in their family, and especially the influences of their abusive father. And you have a key moment between Kevin and his soon-to-be wife, played by Lily James, who asks him basically like, is wrestling fake? And then you have Kevin kind of giving, I think, a really compelling answer about the physicality and the setup and how you earn promotions and earn the belt like any other job. And that's a pretty compelling pitch for why, even though wrestling is scripted, why it's calling it fake is kind of short-sighted, I guess you could say. And I think that's a really important scene for any like nascent wrestling aficionado who maybe doesn't quite understand wrestling. It's a really good piece of writing to kind of indoctrinate you real quick as you spend this time in a hardcore wrestling story. I really like the scene where the brothers sneak out Mike to have him play a band gig at a local college. That was done pretty well. Learning that Kevin was in fact a virgin, despite the fact that he was a successful and like locally famous wrestler. I thought that was very amusing. And Lily James, to her credit, I think it's definitely a thankless wife role, but she does pretty good, I think, carrying some emotional beats as well. So it's not the best role by any means, but she does pretty well with it. And yeah, tough movie, heavy movie, but it'll keep your attention, and I think it actually will feel satisfying for you in the end, even though it's a pretty unrelenting dose of tragedy once things pick up on that front. Nonetheless, shout out to Iron Claw. I think a Best Picture nomination is on the way. It's not going to contend for winning it, but I think it's very much deserving, and it's probably in my or close to my top 10 films of the year. It's been a great movie year, and Iron Claw is a big part of that. But let me know, how did you feel about the Iron Claw? What were your favorite aspects about it? Do you agree this is Zac Efron's best performance of his career? What did you think about it? And for more movie reviews, and also very soon my best movies of 2023 top 10, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.